Hello, my name is Eric Hutchinson, and I teach at the College of Southern Nevada in Las Vegas. Today, I'm going to be presenting on how to study to learn math. So I'm going to be giving you some teaching tips in order to be successful in your math classes. So let's go ahead and get started. And as you can see, Eric Hutchinson, College of Southern Nevada. And I'm going to start off with 6 tips to help you learn math. Now, the first one is make sure you attend all of your classes. You don't want to miss information that your teacher is saying in class. There might be some announcements, some important things to remember when looking over certain problems. So it's important to attend all classes. It's also important to stay with your teacher's pace. So make sure you keep current with all the material. Again, that's why it's important to attend all classes, because if you miss a class, then you're going to miss the notes and you'll feel like you're going to be behind. So that's why you want to make sure you stay with your teacher's pace. Even have a recorder if need be. If your teacher allows you to record, at least you can catch everything that the teacher is saying if you can't write that down as fast. You want to try and finish your homework as soon as possible, or at least start working on your homework as soon as possible. If you just would have had lecture, then all the material is still fresh in your head. So that way you can immediately start working on problems. And that way it'll still be in your head and you'll be able to at least start the problems out that way while the material is still fresh. It's also important to stay active outside the classroom. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the next one up as well, because both these kind of go together. Staying active means that you're actually actively trying to learn outside of class, meaning that you're actively doing the homework, or you're getting the help that you need, maybe seeing a tutor, or you're joining a study group like this. All these things are ways to stay active. You don't want to just come home and just do nothing. From that, you want to stay active, because that's the way that you learn math, is actually by doing. So you have to do something in order to keep learning. Now, joining a study group is important, because that way peers in your class, you'll be able to help each other out with the material. And so I strongly recommend joining a study group to learn. Also, clarify any questions you have in class immediately. That's another reason why it's important to attend class. You can have your questions answered right away. Now, if your teacher doesn't allow questions during the lecture, then I would write them down in the margins as you take notes. And so that way, when you go up later, you'll know what question that you had. Because otherwise, if you don't do those things, then you might forget right away what it is, and you might be lost if you try and do the homework. So make sure you get your questions answered right away. So I'm going to give you some 6 tips to improve your math score to kind of help raise your score. So as you're going through, you want to make sure you check for patterns. Math is about learning the procedure, the step-by-step procedures. So if you try a lot of problems on your own, you're going to eventually be able to learn the process behind it. You never want to try and memorize steps on a problem. You want to understand and learn the procedure behind it. So that way, when you go step by step, you'll be able to know how to do that question, because you'll have the process in your mind. So this is why, again, you want to try as many problems as you can unassisted. Now, what I mean by unassisted is that with no notes. Now, of course, the first couple of problems you do, you definitely want to look at the notes to make sure you understand how to do the concept. And once you're getting the problem correct, then you want to start doing problems unassisted with no notes, because the more problems you do unassisted, that's going to help you learn the material. It's going to help you become confident for exams. It's going to help you do the problems quicker. So you want to try problems eventually unassisted on your own without looking at your notes every single time. And it's important to know the difference between studying and cramming. Cramming is where you're just trying to do like the last couple hours before the test. You should never start a couple hours before a test to start studying. You need to try and work on problems a lot more than that. So maybe even a couple days worth, like you'll be practicing some problems, maybe a few hours here and there each day until you feel confident to do those problems. That's how many problems that you should be doing. If you can teach somebody else how to do the problem, then that means you really understand how to do the problem itself. So if you can, in a study group, for instance, if you want to go ahead and teach somebody or explain to somebody step by step how to do a problem, that's going to help you out as well, because then they'll make you become stronger in the material. it's important to take a practice test. So your teacher might give you a study guide of some kind, or maybe you might know how many questions will be on the test. Then you can pick practice problems to put on that sample test, and then you can try that test on your own. Give yourself the same amount of time that you would have for a regular test. Make sure you put yourself into an environment where there's no distractions, because you don't want to have a phone or social media, any of that, to distract you as you're going through. And so when you put yourself in that testing environment, just give yourself a calculator or whatever resources that your teacher will allow you to use. Just use those only. Don't use your notes or anything like that. Because the more the practice tests that you do, the more of these that you do, it's going to help you become more confident for your test. And that way you'll be less likely to blank out on a test. And also it'll be able to help you go through the problems at a faster pace. So that way you'll be able to finish. Now remember, studying for math is not like other subjects like history or things like that, where you can just read through the notes. Okay, so math requires you to actually do problems. So I strongly recommend that you work out problems and do practice tests. That's how you can study for a math test. Also, as I mentioned before, take advantage of math tutoring. If your college offers free tutoring, then definitely go ahead and take advantage of that. You can get the help that you need, or possibly hire a private tutor if you need as well. Now, one last thing I'm going to talk about here is an acronym for math, okay? Now, here's what math stands for. Mistakes allow thinking to happen, okay? Now, don't feel too discouraged if you make a mistake. That's okay. We all make mistakes, but that's the only way that we can actually learn. All right, so I hope these tips have been helpful for you. Thank you for watching this presentation.